Good morning, and welcome to our Sunday service. I'm Jen Elliott, and I'll be your celebrant today. I'm newish to the UU community, been going here for about my third year, but this is my first time as being the celebrant, so go easy on me. I'd like to extend a special welcome to all those who are joining us for the first time today. Don't be shy about saying hi to a new face in the crowd. If that's you, welcome yourself by meeting your neighbor. We're glad you chose to join us this morning. If you haven't already, please visit the welcome desk out in the front of the foyer and pick up a name tag and a newcomer's packet. Our welcoming committee members have yellow name tags on, and they can point you towards any additional information about our community. If you're joining us online, we'd like to ask you to fill out the newcomer form on the website so that we can be in touch to answer any questions that you may have. Meanwhile, our usual practice is to gather in community for coffee and conversation after the service, either downstairs in the fellowship hall or in our Zoom room online. We want everyone to feel supported at home and welcome here. So let's begin in that spirit by saying our words of welcome together. Whether this is your first or your 1000th Sunday with us, and whether you strolled, rolled, zoomed, ran, or danced in, we are glad you chose to join us. We are one people of many beliefs, identities, origins, sexualities, and genders. All are welcome here. Now we will take a moment to say hello across the technical divide. First, we're going to show the people joining us on Zoom. If you're at home, please turn on your camera. Now, people at home, wave. Now, people who are attending the service in our building, it's your turn to wave. We do have a couple of announcements today. Let's see, so we wanted to just say that the Danmar fundraiser and concert was a great success, and the proceeds to that were $4,239, which is pretty spectacular. So thanks for all those who attended. And then also, for those who came to the UUCP service auction, there are tables downstairs in the fellowship hall for those who purchased things that need to be picked up and taken home. Thanks for everyone and their generosity. And this year was a record year of raising over $19,000. Yeah, so that was pretty spectacular. If you have any questions or concerns about that, please contact Archie George, and he can help you navigate what you might need to give for your donations. But thanks, that was a great success and lots of cool stuff. And we have one additional announcement from Patricia.
Good morning, good people. Thank you for all those who signed up during the week for the Ren Fair booth. We still need people to make some of the food and especially staff the booth on next Sunday. So if you're available and would like to do that, we'd appreciate it. Thanks.
Here end the announcements. The land on which our church is built is part of the ancestral home of the Nimipu, the people, and the Plutsum, people located at the village where the rock is standing up in the river. It was frequented by the Shitsushu, the ones found here, located to the north, and called the Coeur d'Alene by the French-speaking traders. We acknowledge the land is held in sacred kinship since time immemorial, and that the land and its peoples suffered immeasurable trauma brought by Euro-American society. We seek to work with Indigenous communities to show respect and contribute to the healing and nurturing of this precious land and all its peoples. We're hoping that folks joining us via Zoom have a chalice or a candle to light and something to light it with. Let's light our chalices together. In the light of truth and the warmth of love, we gather to seek and seek to share. Hey!
I think we should make that a tradition. Yeah. So, this year marked the 55th that people have celebrated Earth Day. And over that time, it's grown from 20 million people here in the US to a global phenomenon involving more than 1 billion people in almost 200 different countries. Earth Day is the single largest secular observance in the world. Earth Day is definitely one of our high holy days as Unitarian Universalists, and we celebrate it every year. This morning is a little bit of a bait and switch, though. A little more than a month ago, when I was putting together material for the newsletter, I'd recently come across Amanda Gorman reciting her poem Earthrise, and it was so stunning that I thought I would build an entire service around it. So that's what I advertised, but then I forgot that I had had that great idea. And so when Jen came in to suggest going in a different direction, I said, wonderful, that's a great idea. So we're hearing from the Dalai Lama this morning. And if you came here hoping for Amanda, I'm really sorry. She's brilliant. I'll probably loop back to that good idea some year in the future. But what we've planned today is a meditative service, again, by the Dalai Lama. It's a book called Heart to Heart. It offers up compassion as a central practice of environmental work. It is also lovely and thought-provoking, and it has an adorable pudgy panda as one of the central characters. So there's that. I almost suggested we pivot again when Pope Francis died this past week. His environmental encyclical was one of the most powerful and moving parts of his contributions of his papacy, but I'm not that good. However, it is worth noticing that the message at the heart of Earth Day, that our world needs compassionate care, is coming at us from every possible direction. From different cultures, different religions, from people of every generation, and of course from the earth herself. So I'm going to thank you in advance for your grace in allowing us to shift gears. And I hope you enjoy this time reflecting on practicing compassionate care for this beautiful, beautiful planet of ours. Let's begin by singing together number 163 for the earth forever turning.
Now let's take a moment to engage in the practice of generosity together. For those of you able to make a financial contribution, the logistics are on your screen. We typically give away all the cash from our Sunday offering to local charities whose missions align with our values, a program called the Month of Sundays. This month, our recipient is, do we know?
Weekend Food for Kids.
Weekend Food for Kids. To donate, please indicate Month of Sundays on your check or from the online drop-down menu. In the spirit and love, and for the continuing work of this church, we'll take some time to practice generosity together. Our second reading from Heart to Heart focuses on our relationships with animals. This is the Holiness the Dalai Lama speaking. My memory of the 3-month journey across Tibet from my birthplace of Takhtsur, where I was recognized as the Dalai Lama as a 2-year-old boy, is of the wildlife we encountered along the way. Immense herds of kayang, wild asses and drong, wild yak freely roamed the Great Plains. Occasionally we would catch sight of gleaming herds of gawa, the Tibetan gazelle, and nawa, the white-tipped deer, or of tsao, our majestic antelope. I remember too my fascination with the little chibi, or pika, which would congregate on grassy areas. They were so friendly. I love to watch the birds, the dignified gow, the bearded eagle flying high above monasteries, perched in the mountains, the flocks of nanga bar geese, and occasionally at night to hear the call of the wukpa, the long-eared owl. Even in Lhasa, in my rooms at the top of Patala, the winter palace of the Dalai Lama, I spent countless hours as a child studying the behavior of the Kugunkar red-billed ka, which nested in the crevices of its walls. And behind the Norbulinka, the southern palace, I often saw pairs of trung-trung, black-necked crane, that lived in the marshlands there, birds which are the epitome of elegance and grace. And all this is not to mention the crowned glory of Tibetan fauna, the dom, bears, the wamo, mountain foxes, or chanku, wolves, and sazik, beautiful snow leopards, and the thesik lynx, which struck terror in the hearts of nomad farmers. Or the domptra, the gentle-faced giant panda. Sadly, this profusion of wildlife is no longer to be found. Roar, come on with me, roar with me. We must never forget the suffering humans inflict on other sentient beings. Perhaps one day we will kneel down and ask the animals for forgiveness.
When I was growing up, I lived on top of a hill a little ways out of town. Our house was surrounded by acres of woods. And I used to wander around all day. I was a Gen X kid. My mom would say, go play, here's a peanut butter sandwich, be home before dark. On the back side of the hill where I lived, if you knew the way and had some really good waterproof hiking boots, you could tromp a few miles through the forest and follow this stream up to a beautiful waterfall, a mossy rock wall with multiple cascades tumbling at least 25 feet. It was a full day's worth of adventure. It was magical and glorious. So imagine my surprise when I went back to visit my hometown a few years ago and discovered that the whole hillside has been developed. There are hundreds of homes where there used to be wild, untouched forest. And the waterfall, it's part of a small nature preserve with a half-mile accessible walking path that leads from a paved lot straight to the base of the falls. This is a complicated kind of loss. On the one hand, I'm glad that more people can find and see the beauty that touched my heart as a child. On the other, it doesn't feel nearly as special, that waterfall, as it did when getting there took a lot of effort and insider knowledge and a certain amount of luck. Seeing the wilderness I grew up roaming through turned into neat cul-de-sacs filled with McMansions, it hurt my heart. During my lifetime, it's estimated that between 500 and 1,000 species have gone extinct. And there's been a 73% decline in the average size of global wildlife communities. This represents a critical loss of biodiversity. It may not be too long before we hit a tipping point, a place where these populations don't have enough genetic diversity to recover, even if we were able to reverse the conditions causing their decline. In other words, we are in the midst of a mass extinction, and it is human-caused. So how do we live with that? Can we be present to the feelings that arise when we face squarely into that heartbreaking truth? I'm going to invite you now into a brief meditation on the changes you've witnessed in your lifetime, perhaps to wild places that are precious to you, perhaps just in general to this precious planet of ours. So imagine yourself in a wild place, sometime long ago, maybe your childhood stomping grounds or someplace you read about in a book or saw in a show. It could even be a place you create from your imagination. What does the air smell like, taste like, feel like? What forms of life surround you, seen or unseen? Animals, birds, plants, fungus. Can you feel the diverse web of life? Now press the fast forward button. What is happening to the landscape? How is it shifting and changing? What's happening to the life forms you noticed? Are they struggling to survive? Are they fleeing to other places? Mutating, being crowded out by invasives? Are they going extinct? As you absorb these changes, notice the feelings that arise. What are the losses you are grieving? Can you be present to that grief? Can you let those losses matter? Let's rest in the silence for a moment so that we can reflect and grieve together. We'll move now into the next piece of our text. The biggest troublemakers. Of all the various species of animals on the planet, human beings are the biggest troublemakers. That is clear. Peace and survival of life on Earth as we know it are threatened by human activities, which lack a commitment to humanitarian values. Destruction of nature and natural resources results from ignorance, greed, and lack of respect for the Earth's living things. We humans are the only species with the power to destroy the Earth as we know it. Yet, if we have the capacity to destroy the Earth, so too do we have the capacity to protect it. It seems that with development, the whole world has become much smaller, but the human consciousness is still lagging behind. If we want a better future, we must examine our mindset now. We need to recognize our nature, and then, if we have the determination, there is a real possibility of transforming the human heart.
Decades of rampant, out-of-control consumerism have put our fragile ecosystems at risk. We have done so much damage, and yet there are so many hopeful stories too. Nature is amazingly resilient. Sometimes if we just get out of the way, life recovers and reestablishes itself. I love reading about dam removal and river restoration across the country. After an initial brief adjustment period, there's this astounding uptick in both biodiversity and population size. The fish come back, the bears come back, the bugs come back. More significantly, all of the plants and animals go back to playing the role they evolved to play in the complex ecosystems we fouled up with our extractive technologies. I actually find it reassuring, especially when I extrapolate it out of problems like climate change, which seems so big and complicated. It's hard to imagine a way forward often. But what if we don't have to figure out how to fix things? We just have to stop messing them up in the first place. I have a feeling that nature is more than capable of restoring balance to the chemical makeup of our atmosphere if we humans would just stop spewing our carbon waste at such an alarming rate. The collective will is there globally. It's deeply distressing and embarrassing that our nation is the one that's backed away. It's also an opportunity, though, because the work that we do here, including the conversations that we have with our neighbors, matters. It makes a difference. This week, as we celebrate Earth Day, I've ironically been moving lots of soil, literally tons, out of my basement to allow plumbing to be put in for a second much-needed bathroom. I've also removed tons of broken concrete in recent years on this property I recently purchased to open up the soil in our yard to new life. This has included adding many tons and heavy wheelbarrow loads of compost. Over the last 3 years, this small piece of land has been in my charge. This spring, another 5 yards of compost, I think I'm down to 1 that I have to do today, need to be moved 1 scoop at a time, are being added to my annual garden bed, my raspberry patch, my existing blueberry, strawberry, rhubarb, garlic, and asparagus beds, and my 3 new apple trees that will become a living fence in my yard. As some of you know, 3 years ago, I moved from a 105-acre farm where we were raising a herd of grass-fed beef to owning a postage-sized lot in town. This was a pretty big transition. My new charge has been to transition this small parcel into an oasis of diversity and plant and animal life. Ironically, after spending each spring on my farm for the last almost 20 years planting 3,000 plus trees, now I have to figure out how to go small. I'm feeding the soil with much compost and diverse plantings that will ultimately feed me and my family. Instead of 3,000 trees, I have to be careful in selecting 3 new trees each year to plant. Will it be a shade tree, a fruit tree, a much-loved ginkgo, mountain ash, a stately oak? Each adds its own uniqueness to the mix. The earthworms are doing the heavy lifting now, and I'm just providing them the space and the resources to multiply. It feels great to gently dig a hole for a new plant each spring and find so many worms wiggling around to welcome the new roots of my plants. When we work in collaboration with the soil microbiology and its intricate soil food web of diversity, this small patch of earth will begin to give back to the humans that care for this land, working in unison, in collaboration with nature. When we give, we also receive in mind, body, and spirit from the effort and can live in great harmony with the earth. Let's take another moment for meditation. I'm going to ask some wondering questions, just like we did with the children. I wonder, what are the hopeful signs that you see where people are turning toward a more sustainable and responsible way of being? What is it that people who are doubling down on the extractive economy are so afraid of losing? And how can we help them feel safe enough to change? What small acts can we find as individuals to reduce the harm caused by our lifestyles? This is the 4th movement for a compassionate revolution. Compassion, loving kindness, and altruism are the keys not only to human development, but also to planetary survival. Real change in the world will only come from a change of heart. What I propose is a compassionate revolution, a call for radical reorientation away from our habitual preoccupation with self. It is a call to turn toward the wider community of beings with whom we are connected, and for conduct which recognizes others' interests alongside our own. One of the most powerful visions I've experienced was the first photograph of the Earth from outer space. The image of a blue planet floating in deep space, glowing like the full moon on a clear night, brought home powerfully to me the recognition that we are indeed all members of a single family sharing one little house. This beautiful blue planet is our only home. What happens on it affects us all. We have to learn to live in harmony and peace with each other and with nature. This is not just a dream, but a necessity. If we do not look after this home, what else are we responsible to do on this earth? Everything is interdependent. Everything is inseparable. Our individual well-being is intimately connected both with that of all others and with the environment within which we live. Our every action, our every deed, word, and thought, no matter how slight or inconsequential, it may seem, has an implication not only for ourselves, but for all others too. We are all interconnected in the universe, and from this, universal responsibility arises. The creatures that inhabit this earth, be they human beings or animals, are here to contribute, each in its own particular way, to the beauty and prosperity of the world. I believe everyone has the responsibility to develop a happier world. We need ultimately to have a greater concern for others' well-being. In other words, kindness or compassion, which is lacking now. We must pay more attention to our inner values, develop a sense of oneness of humanity.
I've spoken before of Martin Buber's work, I and Thou. And in it, he differentiates between a world in which we see other people as objects, and I-it relationships, and subjects, an I-thou relationship. Rather than defining other people based on the ways they impact us, we grant to each and every human we encounter sacred status. We try to open our minds and hearts to the reality that everybody is the star of their own story, rather than a bit player in ours. For most indigenous cultures, all things, plants, animals, rocks, mountains, are people, and they're worthy of the I-thou relationship. The only things called it are those made by humans: chairs, cars, asphalt roads. Everything else has life, an agency, a voice. In some ways, the shift of embracing animacy of all life, all living things, all natural things, comes kind of easily for me. My family still teases me about the year I planted way too many snap peas. It was my first time growing them. I started them indoors, and I figured that there would be some percentage that wouldn't make it, but they all made it. And they were, when it was time to transplant, they were all thriving. I had probably, 80 snap pea. And I filled up the bed that I had planned to put them in, and then I filled up another one, and there were still more pea plants there, pea starts. So I started tucking them against the garden wall. I put them next to the compost bin. I planted them along the porch. Oh my good Lord, we had so many peas. We gave peas to everybody. We brought them to potlucks. We gave out huge bins at work. I had my kids bring them to school and hand them out to their classmates. And when anybody asked me, why didn't you just compost the extras, plant what you need and compost the extras? I said, I didn't want to hurt their feelings. So what happens? What shifts in us when we listen to the trees, to the hills, to the river and the soil? When we listen to the animals, when we see the natural world as made up of sacred beings? I know the first thing that happens for me is that this tremendous tenderness for everything wells up. I walk through the forest and I don't just admire the cedars, I love the cedars. And it may be my overactive imagination, but it feels like they love me back. If we were to choose to see the world as made up not of things, but of people, tree people, animal people, rock people, mountain people, how would that change how we live? So let's enter now into another brief time of meditation or reflection. And the invitation this time is to bring to mind a plant or an animal or a natural place that you feel a sense of connection to, a sense of kinship with. Maybe it's a tree or a companion animal or that rock that you always stop to sit on and admire the view. Let this place occupy your imagination. Pay attention to its details, its shape, texture, scent, the way it moves or doesn't move. and then let it speak. What does it have to say to you? What does it want to ask you?
In our fifth and final movement, the compassionate heart. If you want to change the world, first try to improve change within yourself. Creating a more peaceful world requires a peaceful mind and a peaceful heart. A good heart is the source of all happiness and joy, and we can all be warm-hearted if we make an effort. But better still is to have bodhicitta, which is a good heart imbued with wisdom. Bodhicitta, thank you. We need to cultivate a compassion that is powerful enough to make us feel committed to bringing about the well-being of others, so that we are actually willing to shoulder the responsibility for making this happen. In Tibetan, such compassion is called Naing Je Shampu, literally great compassion. Through developing an attitude of responsibility toward others, we can begin to create the kinder, more compassionate world we all dream of. May I become at all times, both now and forever, a protector for those without protection, a guide for those who have lost their way, a ship for those with oceans to cross, a sanctuary for those in danger, a lamp for those without light, a place of refuge for those who lack shelter, and a servant to all in need.
White supremacy, heteropatriarchy, and consumerism are all slightly different faces of the same demon, which might be arrogance or greed or just a profound misunderstanding of what it means to be human. Rugged individualism is in the mix too, and the mechanistic understanding of the universe, seeing it as something dead, not alive. This demon has broken our world. It's killing us and it's killing our planet. And I think what shrinks it, what steals its power away, is actually humility. What if our lives aren't any more interesting or important than the lives of a snail or a salmon? What if we are part of an interconnected web of life rather than perched at the top of some imaginary hierarchy? What if we're just one more species that might go extinct so that nature can try again to fill whatever gap in the ecosystem we evolved to fill? We need to make our we bigger and more diverse and more complex. Not just one tree, but the whole grove. Not just one person, but the whole community. And not just one community, but every community and every species across the continent and around the world. All of us pooling resources, pooling wisdom, all of us open and receptive so that when the time comes to leap, we will know and we will make that leap together into a new way of being that we're starting to sense the edges of in this book and in so many other places. The demon is fighting so hard and so loudly just now. I say, let's not waste our energy getting worked up about the most recent outrages of this last gasp of the demon. Let's put everything we can into bringing about the change, the shift, the turning. What commitments are you willing to make to build a future that is a little less precarious? For our final meditative moment, I invite you to close your eyes and hear again the Dalai Lama's prayer. May I become at all times, both now and forever, a protector for those without protection, a guide for those who have lost their way, a ship for those with oceans to cross, a sanctuary for those in danger, a lamp for those without light, a place of refuge for those who lack shelter, and a servant to all in need. For as long as space endures, and for as long as living beings remain, until then, may I too abide to dispel the misery of the world. Amen, and blessed be. I invite you to rise now in body or spirit for our closing hymn, Blue Boat Home.
For our closing reading, not surprisingly, we'll go to Mary Oliver, Such Singing in the Wild Branches. It was spring, and finally I heard him among the first leaves. Then I saw him clutching the limb in an island of shade with his red-brown feathers all trim and neat for the new year. First, I stood still and thought of nothing. Then I began to listen. Then I was filled with gladness, and that's when it happened, when I seemed to float, to be myself, a wing or a tree. And I began to understand what the bird was saying. And the sands in the glass stopped for a pure white moment, while gravity sprinkled upward, like rain rising. And in fact, it became difficult to tell just what it was that was singing. It was the thrush for sure, but it seemed not a single thrush, but himself and all his brothers, and also the trees around them, as well as the gliding long-tailed clouds in the perfectly blue sky. All of them were singing. And of course, yes, so it seemed, so was I. Such soft and solemn and perfect music doesn't last for more than a few minutes. It's one of those magical places wise people like to talk about. One of the things they say about it that is true is that once you've been there, you're there forever. Listen, everyone has a chance. Is it spring? Is it morning? Are there trees near you? And does your own soul need comforting? Quick then, open the door and fly on your heavy feet. The song may already be drifting away. Please join me in singing the musical benediction, There Is a Love.
Yay! Please join me in the words to embody our chalice flame. We extinguish this chalice that it might glow gently in our hearts. May it light our paths as we leave this place. May it guide our way until we are together again. And since we're actually running a little ahead, I figure if you want to have a seat, we'll give Amanda the last word. There we go.
On Christmas Eve, 1968, astronaut Bill Anders snapped a photo of the Earth as Apollo 8 orbited the moon. Those three guys were surprised to see from their eyes a planet looked like an Earthrise, a blue orb hovering over the moon's gray horizon with deep oceans and silver skies. It was our world's first glance at itself, our first chance to see a shared reality, a declared stance, and a commonality, a glimpse into our planet's mirror. And as threats drew nearer, our own urgency became clearer as we realized that we hold nothing dearer than this floating body we all call home. We've known that we're caught in the throes of climactic changes some say will just go away, while some simply pray to survive another day. For it is the obscure, the oppressed, the poor who, when the disaster is declared done, still suffer more than anyone. Climate change is the single greatest challenge of our time. Of this, you're certainly aware. It's saddening, but I cannot spare you from knowing an inconvenient fact, because it's getting the facts straight that gets us to act and not to wait. So I tell you this not to scare you, but to prepare you, to dare you to dream a different reality where, despite disparities, we all care to protect this world, this riddled blue marvel, this little true marvel, to master the verve and the nerve to see how we can serve our planet. You don't need to be a politician to make it your mission to conserve, to protect, to preserve that one and only home that is ours. To use your unique power to give next generations the planet they deserve. We are demonstrating, creating, advocating. We heed this inconvenient truth because we need to be anything but lenient with the future of our youth. And while this is a training in sustaining the future of our planet, there is no rehearsal. The time is now, because the reversal of harm and protection of a future so universal should be anything but controversial. So, Earth, pale blue dots, we will fail you not. Just as we chose to go to the moon, we know it's never too soon to choose hope. We choose to do more than cope with climate change. We choose to end it. We refuse to lose. We do this and more, not because it's very easy or nice, but because it is necessary. Because with every dawn we carry the weight of the fates of this celestial body orbiting a star, and as heavy as that weight sounded, it doesn't hold us down, but it keeps us grounded, steady, ready, because an environmental movement of this size is simply another form of an Earthrise. To see it, close your eyes, visualize that all of us in this room and outside of these walls or in these halls, all of us change makers, or in a spacecraft floating like a silver raft in space, and we see the face of a planet anew. We relish the view, we witness its round green and brilliant blue, which inspires us to ask deeply, wholly, what can we do? Open your eyes, know the future of this wise planet is right in sight, right in all of us. Trust this earth uprising, all of us bring light to exciting solutions never tried before, for it is our hope that implores us at our uncompromising core to keep rising up for an earth more than worth fighting for.
I've watched it like 10 times. It gives me goosebumps every time. So, rise. And go in peace. Come back next Sunday.
Thank you so much. I'm gonna rearrange this because I am little and I have no torso. Hello everyone, thank you so much to the Academy for having me. This is so much better and funner than class. I was saying this is going to be, I think, the most educational experience of my week outside of lecture and section. I realized that I actually have 10 minutes to talk, and I was going to actually read 2 poems. What I'd actually like to do instead is to only read one poem, but to have a conversation about how that poem came to be. Because as I was reflecting this morning, I realized that that poem's history that it touches upon intersects directly with this academy as well as with its larger project. As was mentioned, I perform my poetry around the country, and one of the most thrilling things I've been able to do is do a few commissioned poems with CBS this morning. And they always come at me with these big asks. They're like, okay, we want you to write a poem and perform it at the top of the Empire State Building and look at a helicopter and don't